Good afternoon, hockey fans. How's it going? David Dwork here with you once again for the latest episode of the Odd Man Rush, coming to you live on the 5 Reasons Sports YouTube channel, and as always, brought to you by Intense Nutrition in Coral Springs. Joining me this week is, I guess, a guy who the Panthers fans have really grown to love over the last few months. From the NHL Network and with Sport Logic, this is Mike Kelly, who famously picked the Panthers as his Stanley Cup champion before the season started. So obviously, Mike, right off the bat, you gotta be feeling pretty good about that wager at this point of the season.
Yeah, look, Florida's kind of impressed in a lot of the ways that I thought that they might, and they've been obviously one of the better teams in the league this season. So the reason, going into this year, I had a good suspicion. I'm sure a lot of people did, that they would be a good team. But when we talk about Stanley Cup favorites, that there are good teams that are eliminated right away for me, because I can pick apart a couple of critical areas that I think really matter in the postseason that they don't possess. There are other teams that maybe don't run the gauntlet in the regular season, but I think are built to win in the playoffs a little more. And with Florida, I just saw an elite team that I also think is built to win in the playoffs. And there's only a handful of those. So they've been looking every bit as good as I kind of thought they might at the start of the season, probably even a little bit better.
Now, when you say like you can pick apart certain good teams that maybe won't succeed in the postseason the way that the Panthers might, can you kind of dive into a little bit more specifics? Like what element of what teams bring to like a team like Toronto maybe stands out in my mind as a team that maybe couldn't make as long of a run as the Panthers based on depth and just issues on the back end. But I'm curious, like what you're talking about when you say that.
Yeah. Okay. Well, use the Toronto example. Look, they've had, final elimination game losses a number of years in a row. They've been, right on the bubble. You do all those 4 or 5 playoff series over again, they're going to get through in a couple of them just by law of averages. But, they're a team, for them, turnovers at critical moments in the game, puck management, seem to cost them at certain times. And, you bring up depth, and I look at Tampa Bay, I look at Florida, and Toronto is the clear top 3 teams in the Atlantic Division. 2 of those teams are going to end up playing each other, and because of the way that Tampa Bay is built, and they won 2 Stanley Cups, there's no secrets there. But Florida is also deeper, and they're also a little heavier, and they can win in more ways. They're a little more versatile in how they create offense. Than Toronto, which is really more of a specialized team. They built that team with a very specific plan in place. And I don't think they can cut you up as many ways as Florida and Tampa can. So that would be an example. You go to the West, there's teams. I've watched Vegas, and I know they got to a Stanley Cup final in their expansion year. And they, got to a conference final last year. And they've had, very good teams, obviously. And if you take their 4 years, whatever it's been, a lot of teams would love to have that kind of success, but they struggle against a certain type of team. And Minnesota pushed them 7 games in the first round last year, and Montreal ended up eliminating them when a lot of people didn't think they would. Those are teams that won in similar ways, and that gives Vegas a lot of trouble. So that's what I mean by identifying key areas and pain points with teams. And there are some that I think when it comes playoff time can potentially be fatal flaws.
Now, we talked about the depth for a moment there with the Panthers. That when you were talking about the Panthers as a Stanley Cup champion, you probably weren't even thinking of guys like Anton Lundell, who is, maybe the dark horse candidate for the Calder Trophy right now, or Mason Marchment, who is his production over the last 10 plus games is off the charts. It's kind of remarkable the embarrassment of riches that the Panthers have depth wise.
100%. And no, I wasn't thinking about Anton Lundell having this kind of impact, just because for a rookie center to affect the game so positively in so many areas, there's a learning curve there for most people that exists. Yeah. And, Matt Boldy's another guy that I think has stepped in this year kind of right away. And just, it's like, has this guy been in the league for 8 years? Like it's a lot of those things that it takes, young forwards some time to learn. You wonder how these guys have skipped right through it, which is really impressive. Lundell's killing penalties. He can match up against whoever. He's obviously getting it done offensively. He's been unbelievable. And yeah, Marchment, I hope you got him in your fantasy hockey pool at the right time off the waiver wire. This guy's been explosive. So I didn't see the third line being as impressive as it's been. And I think you can argue it's been one of, if not the best third lines in the league this year.
Yeah.
We know what the top six is. It's so incredible. And I like their defense. I think, I always talk about Mackenzie Weegar as just being this guy that I would love to have on my team if I was a GM, who's probably not appreciated around the league as much as he should be. Ekblad's obviously great, and Gudas performs a valuable service for the team. And there's not a lot of areas that you can start picking this team apart in.
Now, one area that they have kind of gotten a little bit of criticism this year is their play on the road. They've been, record-wise on the average side, but lately they've taken it up a notch. I believe they're 8-3-1 since the holiday break on the road. They just swept a 3-game road trip that took them to Carolina and Minnesota, who's just like Florida, one of the hardest teams to beat on their home ice. It seems like they're getting it together at the right time. And just in terms of like when the playoffs get around, I think this is bigger in terms of building confidence inside the room so that they can win in these tough buildings heading towards the playoffs.
Yeah, no question. And they're going to go up against obviously some tough teams, as if not in the first round, let's say they win the division. You're probably getting Washington or Boston as a wild card. Maybe New York with the Rangers if they fall a bit. But if it's Washington or Boston, those aren't easy places to go in and win. And those are teams that have experienced players that know how to win too. So it's not easy by any means. And I think you touched on a really good point, which is I'm watching Calgary do this in the West, and I love the Flames. Like, that's the one team to me right now that would threaten Florida, I think, if we're talking about the best of the best. Obviously, Colorado's there too, but I picked Florida at the start of the year. If I'm making a prediction at the midway point of the year, kind of post All-Star break, I said Calgary is the team to watch. But
they're scoring like crazy.
Oh, they do, but they defend like as well as any team. They're, I think, second in goals against average. They're number one in expected goals against. You will win with defense always in the playoffs. Sometimes you can win with offense, but defense, if you got that locked down, you're going to be a really tough out, and they do. Florida, obviously, they can shoot the lights out too. That'd be a great Cup final. We'll see what happens, but yeah, you want to be able to win on the road. You want to be able to, kind of be playing your best hockey as you're getting right into the playoffs. So that's important for Florida to kind of be hitting the right notes at the right time of the year as you go down the stretch, especially after you kind of steamroll through the first half of the season. You don't want to get complacent. You want to be able to make sure you're winning on the road. Your special teams are where you want them to be. You're just kind of playing your best hockey overall.
You mentioned the importance of defense, and just got to throw a quick nod out to former Panthers goalie Jacob Markstrom, who's having an absolutely amazing year for Calgary right now, and that would be an awesome final for sure. But talking about defense, we got to talk for a second about Aaron Ekblad. He was just named the NHL second star of the week earlier today, goal and an assist in all three of those road games last week in Carolina, Minnesota, and Chicago. Down here, we're talking about Aaron Ekblad as a Norris Trophy candidate. Nationally, what's the sense? Is he in that conversation right now?
Yeah, I think he's in the conversation. I wouldn't have him as a favorite. When people fill out their ballots, the people who actually vote on these awards, they put 5 names on the list. So I know the finalists every year are 3, but everybody, you get 1 through 5 to put on your list. Ekblad to me would probably be in the top 5 right now if I was doing it today. But he's kind of in that second tier of candidate for me at this point. I've got Victor Hedman, Cale Makar is probably the 2 front runners. You've got Adam Fox in the mix. Chris Letang's having a phenomenal year. There's a few different guys that are, Charlie McAvoy, you can start making a case. And Ekblad's kind of in that, there's definitely a case to be made, but probably isn't top 2, maybe even top 3 guy. Still, if you're top 5 and we're talking about, best defenseman in the league, that's a phenomenal year. So I think just about any defenseman in the league would take that kind of conversation. But yeah, I'd say he's in the mix, and there's still a lot of hockey left. He could certainly work his way into a top 3 spot potentially.
Yeah, and keep in mind his defensive partner Mackenzie Weegar was on at least a handful of people, myself included, their ballots last year for the Norris Trophy, just because of how amazing he did stepping up when Aaron Ekblad went down with the leg injury.
Yeah, no question. And the other thing, like, Weegar doesn't play power play really, right? So
no,
you think about what I think he could quarterback a number one power play like he has earlier in his career, like in junior, etc. But at worst, he definitely can quarterback a second power play unit. Think of the points that are being left on the table by Uyghur by not being on at least a second unit, if not a first unit power play. And if he had those points on top of what he does at 5-on-5, which we know is like elite in terms of his offensive production, the narrative would change a little bit. More people would be aware. And it shouldn't take just points to drive it, David. Like you watch Florida play, you know how good he is defensively, in transition, and also offensively at even strength. But think if you had those extra 12 points a year, kind of the more notoriety he would get, right? It's almost not fair. Like if you watch him enough, but there's a lot of people that don't. So yeah, no, I love the guy.
No, and it's funny. I was just thinking as we're talking about Aaron Ekblad in the Norris Trophy conversation, for him to get into that upper echelon of that category, he probably need to put up more points in the second half of the season. It wouldn't have to do as much with his defensive play. But if he goes out and he puts up 25 points in the last 30 games, all of a sudden it's like, oh yeah, Ekblad too. So I'm with you on that one. That it's weird that it's judged that way, but it's the world we live in, right?
Yeah. No, he's been fantastic. If you're a Panthers fan, all you should really care about is that he's playing incredible hockey. That D pairing is one of the best in the league. They've been outstanding. So you're winning games. So that's all that should really matter.
So I wanted to talk to you a little bit about Jonathan Huberto. Just off the charts this season. It looked like he had grown into this amazing player already, point per game pace kind of guy. This offseason, he went to the gym, he bulked himself up, he got stronger, and now he's out there. His two-way game is off the charts. He's winning board battles, muscling guys off the puck. I mean, just when you thought that we're seeing the superstar that he was, he went and took it to another level this year.
Yeah, he's, again, if you watch Florida play in years past, you know how good he is, how special he is, what a great playmaker he is, and an offensive talent. He has found another gear this year, and he's challenging to win the scoring title, which is something I think the potential was always there because he's so good and he plays with good offensive teammates as well. But there's been he's played with different line mates this year. It's not like there's really been this massive sample of just Huberto and these two guys, and nothing ever drops, right? Nothing ever dips off. He's such a incredible gifted playmaker. An offensive player. His IQ, his hockey IQ offensively is among the best in the world, let alone his physical gifts. So yeah, he's been a lot of fun to watch. And I know just based on what he does offensively, there's talk of him potentially being in a Hart Trophy conversation. And there's some people will point out, defensively he's not that impactful, whatever. He kind of doesn't have to be. There's certain guys that I think can be liabilities, and there's other guys that I think, well, they don't impact the game defensively because they don't. Like, why would you want them to? Almost like they don't really have to be that engaged in that part of the game based on who they play with and what they're counted on to do. And so when you're as good offensively as Huberto is, he can drive the success of a line. He can drive positive goal share, expected goal share, those kind of things, and put up massive points. I'm a big fan of his game.
Yeah, and you make a great point. He's kind of moved around with different guys this year, and the production has stayed the same. He's also getting more ice time this year because he's being used on the penalty kill, which we hadn't seen before. He in terms of like the Hart Trophy, most valuable player, his value to the Panthers on so many different levels that's what I really think has turned a corner this season.
Yeah, I think you can make a better case this year than in years past. I'm not sure that it's still the best case of anyone in the league. He wouldn't be first on my Hart ballot, but that's something I never thought he'd really be able to start to muscle away from Alex Barkov, just because Barkov is, number one center and so dominant in every area of the game. Like you're thinking, who's most valuable at the forward position on this team? How could it not be Barkov? And he still is in a lot of ways, but Huberto, like you said, he's affecting the game in a few more areas this year, and has just taken what he's elite at and taken that to another level as well, which is outstanding. And it's nice that if you're Florida, you don't have to have Huberto and Barkov together. balance the scoring out a little bit, because you've had other guys in your top six, Verhaeghe and Duclair, Bennett, everybody can play. So you can kind of have that top six look however you want, balance it out however you want.
Yeah, and I mean, I've kind of argued this year that I'd much rather see them apart at this point, just because I feel like it helps the overall depth of the forward group so much more when you can split them up, just because you've seen the chemistry between Huberto and Bennett, that Bennett, he's been pretty amazing with the Panthers, but a lot of that has been when he's teamed up with Huberto. Verhaeghe and Barkov have been a great duo together. So that's just kind of something that we've spitballed around down here. So jumping from one group of talented MVP candidates to another, I want to talk for a second about the show sponsor, Intense Nutrition, down here in Coral Springs. Guys, I talk to you about them every week, located at 2540 North University Drive, just a few minutes from the Panthers ice den. And like I keep telling you, if you're looking for value prices, you want Walmart, Target type prices, but you want to be able to talk to people and get that valuable personal touch of a local business, jump right into Intense Nutrition. They are going to give you superior quality of product and superior service. Their amazing and knowledgeable staff is going to help you with your vitamin needs, your supplement needs. They'll work one-on-one with you for specific stacks. If you want to fight off cold and flu season, if you're working out a lot, if you're playing sports in one of the softball leagues, kickball leagues, soccer, whatever you need, they can help you out. They've also got this amazing program called the Intense Cleanse and Detox, where they will help you lose between 10 and 15 pounds in just 10 days. Just head over to Intense Nutrition, speak to any one of their knowledgeable people, and they will hook you up. Like I said, they're located over at 2540 North University Drive in Coral Springs, right on the corner of University and Royal Palm. Or you can give them a call. The number's right there on the screen, 954-775-0257. All right, back to the hockey stuff. This is kind of a not sore, but it's a sensitive topic down here, Mike, because I think it's like the one chink in the armor. It's the one area where maybe you worry more than anywhere else, and that's in the crease, unfortunately, with Sergey Babrowski. Now, this year, I think progressively in his 3 years in Florida, he's gotten better. And I mean, I've played goal, I've taught goal, I've something, just as a goalie nerd, I watch it, closer than other things. He's making much more consistently. He's making like great saves. He's moving laterally well. I think he's challenging a little bit more. The problem is the leaky goals, the ones that squeak through, the ones that are demoralizing. And even yesterday in Chicago, like the Panthers won, I think 5-2. They got a couple empty net goals, but the two goals against one of them was from below the goal line. It makes me wonder, is he going to be good enough for a playoff run? That's, I guess, the question. Is Sergey Babrowski capable of carrying a team to the cup?
Yeah, I'd say he's capable. Will he do it? I don't know. That level of consistency isn't there. Like, I know why you're nervous, right? I get it.
Yeah.
We've seen what he can do, not only in regular seasons, winning Vezina and being, outstanding, especially when he was in Columbus, but we've seen him play in the playoffs, and he's played really well. He can put together the kind of stretch required to play in the postseason for 2 months, play well enough to win, especially behind that Florida team. He doesn't have to be the guy that he was in Columbus, where it's a defensive-minded approach. They're trying to limit quality. They're not scoring a lot, and he's got to stop what he has to stop. In Florida, like, don't give up 4, right? That's kind of it a lot of the time. Because they'll get you 3 or 4. So in the playoffs, look, your window for your margin for error is probably not as great, and you're going to have to win some games 3-1 and 4-2 and whatever. But he's good enough. He can do it. I know what you mean, though. Like, there hasn't been enough there this year for me to say, yeah, you know what, this guy's dialed in. I have no doubt he's going to show up in the playoffs and be fantastic. One of the things that I look at that I'm studying a lot right now and trying to understand the best that I can is the effects of goaltending on individual teams. So we know goaltending is important, right? It's important for everybody. I maintain
you get no argument from me there.
Yeah. I maintain, though, that this is where, we can start to debate a bit. It's more important for some teams than others. And the teams that can get away with lackluster goaltending versus the ones that can't. Goaltending is massively important to the New York Rangers, right? Because Shesterkin wins them games. He makes up for a below average defensive team, right? It's not as important in Florida or in Colorado. two places where they don't get expected or above expected goaltending a lot. It's kind of 50-50 in the games that they play, but they still win a ton because they can score a ton, right? Like, right. I think about Edmonton. You look at the top 5 teams in terms of their win percentage in games where they get expected or above expected goaltending. So that's just, based on the expected goals against, what the team's given up, have you stopped what you should? The top 5 teams are the best of the best, except for Edmonton. Edmonton's third, right in there, which shows, when they get goaltending, they win a ton because they can score and they're a good team otherwise. The problem for them is that they don't get even average goaltending most of the time. And they still win a decent amount of those games because they can score and they're, like I said, a pretty good team. But man, does goaltending matter for that team when it's like, just get decent goaltending and we could potentially be one of the better teams in the league. I bring this all back to Florida. They haven't had, good to great goaltending as often as a lot of other teams, but they don't need it. In the playoffs, you're going to need it at some point. Maybe it's in the cup final where the other team's just, straight up as good as you are. And it might come down to something like that. Maybe it's in the first round. Maybe it's the end of a first round, start of a second round where your team just defensively isn't where it is normally. You're going to have these stretches where the goaltending is great. He can do it. We've seen him do it. Will he do it when the time comes? I don't know.
Now, kind of staying on that trend real quick in terms of, potential weaknesses, aside from, the question above the crease, if you want to put it that way, are there any other weaknesses you see with the Panthers just in terms of the way they play the game? Because I know one thing a lot of teams try to do against them is clog the neutral zone and limit their opportunities on the rush because they do lead the league in offensive rushes, but it's not like anything that we've seen anybody be able to do consistently because they'll start dumping it in, they'll start working the puck the other way. What weaknesses do you see from your end, if any?
Yeah, see, that's what I love about Florida is that you can try to take that away, but they'll cut you up in a different way. That's what we talk about, not one-dimensional, right? They can play a heavy ozone cycle forecheck type game just as well as they can play the rush game. But their transition game, their ability to kill plays in the neutral zone, turn it up ice, and then, like you said, have the most dangerous rush attack in the league, that's a big one. So if you can try to disrupt that, obviously, it'll help your chances. Where I think you can get Florida into a bit of trouble is by aggressively forechecking them, kind of cutting the head off the snake. When you can get on their D quickly, like whether it's a dump in or just going for a puck recovery low in their end, get on their D quickly. Don't let them make that first pass, that outlet pass, stretch pass, or skate the puck out of the zone. I think when you can make them kind of force them into quick decisions, you can get them into a bit of trouble. But we're going kind of far down the line in terms of, some teams it's like, this thing, I'm pretty sure we can do that to them. And it's really significant. So that's going to cause them major, major problems. You have to go kind of far down the line to get to Florida where I think like that's an addressable area. I think that you can, cause some issues with, but it's by no means the top 5 most important things you can try to do to win a hockey game. So that just shows you how good the Panthers are, though.
Yeah, and I mean, just kind of thinking in terms of opponents, like how many teams are actually good and fast enough up front to be able to get in on Florida's defense that quick and create that kind of pressure. Like you think like Carolina maybe, but it's a short list.
Yeah, it is. And again, it's not an easy thing to do, right? So that's like one area where, Florida's bottom 10 in terms of the chances they allow. They do allow scoring chances off forecheck, but there's just not a lot of forecheck chances in a game in general. So it's not something you can go out with a plan and be like, we're going to get 8, 9, 10 scoring chances out of this because we're going to do this. It's not a frequent enough event. But, in just watching the Panthers and obviously looking through the data as well, that's one thing I'd try to do with that team is make life difficult on their defense because they do move the puck so well. And they are such a big part of the rush. Even when they're not the ones bringing the puck up ice, they're always there for that second layer, right? So if you can, try to disrupt their game as much as possible, there's a lot of things that'll, hopefully fall into place after that.
Now, I did want to get your take on the job to this point that interim head coach Andrew Brunette has done. Obviously, we've talked ad nauseum about the situation when he took over with, the turmoil with Joel Quenneville. from the Kyle Beach situation. But just in terms of the job that Bruno has done, really keeping the train on the tracks and humming right along. It just, even to this point, it really looks like they never skipped a beat, and they're really responding well to him.
Yeah, you know what? I think you could look at it like, while he's taking over this dominant team, how hard could it be? I think it's really hard. And you're
More
first of all
pressure.
taking over, more pressure for sure, but you're taking over for Joel Quenneville, who's a legendary coach in the history of the league. You're taking over for a team that got off to an incredible start, and that is a very, very good team. You're going to have maybe different thoughts and some different principles, but you don't want to disrupt what's been working and what does work for this team. You still want to have your fingerprints on this, and you're the guy that is behind the bench and making the decisions. That's an interesting balancing act, I think, that he's had to perform of not getting in the way too much, but at the same time, you're still the head coach of the team. You have to hold players accountable. You have to make sure things are running the right way. I don't think that's an easy job at all. And I think he's done an excellent job of it down in Florida. So I give full marks to what cannot have been an easy situation to come into.
Yeah, and you've seen kind of watching the Panthers game to game, like you're seeing that he's getting more comfortable with kind of implementing his style, the way that he moves the lines around, the way that the power play is maneuvered. You can see slowly but surely he's getting more and more comfortable, and as you said, putting his fingerprints on the team.
Yeah, and the big thing will be, again, trying to make sure that the team is like trending in the right direction in the second half, and ultimately, as you hit the playoffs, that you've got everybody going. There's the guys are fresh enough. You're playing the kind of hockey you want to be playing. There's no question Florida's making the postseason. They're likely going to win the division. Those things are great. I would think as a coach for a team like that, you just want to make sure that there's a new challenge every day. There's something for these guys to look forward to every day. There's a reason to go out and still pay attention to the details, and not get complacent at times as you get into those dog days of the season. Those are things that I think keep coaches busy at this time of year on teams like that. But yeah, like I said, just an outstanding job I think that him and the staff have done this year of making sure Florida's still playing a really effective brand of hockey, and not taking the foot off the gas pedal.
Yep. So kind of on that note, the last thing I'm going to ask you about, Mike, Stanley Cup prediction, Florida Panthers. Who's their biggest challenge to get to the Stanley Cup in the Eastern Conference? Not going to worry about the final, that whoever ends up coming out of the West, whether it's Calgary or Vegas or Colorado. Let's get to that point first. But who in the Eastern Conference do you think will give the Panthers the biggest trouble in a playoff run?
I think it's probably their likely second round opponent, Tampa Bay.
Of course.
How could it not be, right? Like, first of all, you got Vasilevsky, who, I don't think this season he's been the best goalie in the league, although he's up there, but he's the best goalie in the league.
Yeah.
They've won 2 cups. Yeah, exactly. They've won 2 cups. They beat Tampa in the playoffs last year. I know Florida got knocked out in the playoffs last year by Tampa in the first round. If Florida didn't play Tampa, I think they could have won a couple rounds. That's just a hard matchup for them because they're like them in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
So I think if Florida wins the division, even if they don't, if Florida doesn't have to play Tampa in the first round, I think Florida can beat Toronto. I think Florida can beat Washington or Boston or the Rangers. So whether they play the Lightning in the first round or the second, it'll be one of the two. I still think that has to be their biggest challenge, because if you get through that, then you're in a conference final against Carolina
or Pittsburgh, maybe. Yeah.
I think Florida would have little problem with the Rangers. And then from as you get farther down, you're looking at a bigger talent gap. So Carolina, Pitt, those wouldn't be easy ones either. But I think it's got to be Tampa. What do you think?
No, I agree. I think that as you said, they kind of mirror each other in a lot of ways. They're deep. They can throw 4 lines at you. I think the X factor had always been kind of Tampa's depth in their goaltending. I think at least in the depth department, Florida has caught up, if not passed them.
Yeah.
But, when it comes to the playoffs, you never really quite know how the games are going to shake out. And if you look at the playoff series last year, you had high scoring games, you had low scoring games. These two teams can kind of hit each other in a lot of different ways. From an entertainment value, I would love to see them go at it again. It's a shame that it can't be a conference final just the way that it's made up these days. But either way, I feel like whether it's Tampa, whether it's Carolina, you're going to get some really entertaining series that the Panthers are going to play. And look, at the end of the day, like you hear the players talk about it all the time. They want to be tested. They want to go up against the best. They want to see how they stack up. That's why they're doing it. So I think they're going to be tested. And I think ultimately, if they're the way that they're made up right now, it's going to be entertaining as hell, if nothing else.
Yeah, no, it's such fun hockey to watch those two teams, and they don't like each other, obviously.
Right. That's the other thing. That
if Florida gets them and Florida beats them, they're probably going to be sitting there thinking, okay, we just beat them. Like, we know it now, we know we can do this.
Right.
And don't underestimate what that feeling would be like.
I think that's an awesome way to end the show, Mike. I want to thank you again so much for coming on today and kind of giving the Panthers fans a lot of good stuff to think about with not just your prediction, which is looking as solid as it was the day you made it, but just a lot of good attributes that the team kind of has to enjoy right now, because it's been a long decades and decades of life for hockey fans down here in South Florida. So I keep kind of stressing, enjoy the moment. This may end up lasting for several years. It looks like they're built to last, but just soak in the moment right now, because right now they've never had anything like this before. This is the best team in Panthers franchise history.
I was just going to say that. It's got to be. I know they had a team that went to the Cup final, but this has to be the best team they've ever had, and a team capable of winning a Cup. So I know a few Panthers fans. They're a passionate bunch, so it'd be cool to see. But yeah, and you know what? They play a fun brand of hockey. That's the best part, right? Like, I remember at the start of the season, I picked Florida to win the Cup. I was, pretty sure that, how they like to play and why they'd be successful. And then the national TV schedule comes out, right? ESPN and TNT. I'm thinking, man, you guys don't know. You want to sell hockey in the U.S.? You just got the U.S. deal. Panthers games.
Yeah.
That's what fans
want to see. Look at the game,
right?
Finally got on TNT the other night, and they played that great come from behind win against Carolina. That was an entertaining, awesome hockey. Like you want to put hockey on the map in America? Every time the Panthers play a team from the West, put it on TV.
Hey, I'm with you.
Well, Mike, thanks again for joining me. I'm going to wrap up the episode of the Odd Man Rush here, brought to you by Intense Nutrition. Thank you to my producer, Manny Chang, for doing everything right behind the scenes and hooking it up. And thank you to everybody who's been watching, listening, commenting, and tweeting. It's all much appreciated. For Manny, for Mike Kelly of NHL Network and Sport Logic, I'm David Dwork signing off. We'll see you guys next week on the On Man Rush.